G'day guys, how are you going? Today we are watching Dr. 3 in his Chrysler Great Fun tank playing on Corellia in World of Tanks, of course. Now, if you guys look at the title of this video, it is very suggestive that I'm very salty about this game, and I just want to put out for the record that I'm not really that salty about the game. I think there are definitely things that have kind of gone to hell in this game, to be honest. I don't want to swear in my videos, otherwise it all becomes demonetized, but there are some things which I'm not really that keen about, but I'll get to that a bit later in the video. So the thing I really want to talk about is what has happened since the release of SirFoch's video all those months ago. What was it, like 8 or so months ago in World of Tanks? Has it changed for the better? Has it changed for the worst? Well, obviously, to give you a bit of history, he was removed as a World of Tanks community contributor for his rampant swearing, and World of Tanks didn't really want that to represent their community contributor program, which I understand as a community contributor myself, that's maybe not something that Wargaming wants to have attached to their name. But he is back now. He has made a few videos. He went on a pretty big hiatus of about a month, but he is back now, so I guess that's good. It's good to see him making videos again. He looks like he's not too upset about the game anymore. I mean, he is, but he's not like terribly upset. So the thing that I really want to say about this tank is that in theory it has incredible armor, it has a pretty good gun, and it makes this tank really hard for noobs to hit, and you will need to fire premium rounds if you want to shoot at tanks like the Lurva. Now you can see that he has had a few opportunities here just using standard rounds to be able to go through the Lurva, so this tank is still pretty good at being able to aim at shots, and that's why it has the good aiming time, etc. Also with its armor, it does have very good just standard frontal armor, but you see here when he drives forward in the tank, and in many situations within this tank, the side armor is really a massive letdown of this tank, and is really something that can really get you into a very bad situation, because for instance, it's so easy for tanks just to be able to go through the side, even that tiny little road wheel at the very front, track the tank and do damage to the tank as well. So that makes it quite situational in itself. So in theory, in practice, this tank isn't actually all that great, and I think that for sure the hype around this tank in terms of the negative hype really was a bit too much. Like, yes, this tank was another tank in a long line of tanks that probably should not have been introduced into World Tanks without a bit more balancing, but I really don't think it was the monster that even the Defender at tier 8 right now is, which is a lot worse than this tank, guys. It's just a much worse tank than this tank in terms of its overpoweredness. Even the T26E5, that thing, it probably has, you know, it's a better tank all around in my opinion. And the Chrysler K is a pretty situational tank, and in these kinds of situations here where it can be flanked pretty easily, this is when it becomes quite bad. As you can see, as Dr. 3 here has pretty much lost half of his health. In fact, he has lost half of his health. But Wargaming have definitely learnt their lesson through all the community backlash, and it's not like SirFoch was the first person to say, look guys, we have a few probably too overpowered tanks coming into this game, so stop doing it. I mean, when I was speaking to the developers there, they realized that they had a lot of premium tanks coming out that were, say, overpowered. But I can almost sympathize with them. And the reason I say that, and that's probably going to get me a lot of backlash, is because they're running a business and they want to try and make as much money as possible. And so a lot of people aren't going to buy a tank if it's no better than the tank that was brought out before it. I mean, because they've probably already got that tank. So why should they go ahead and buy another tank? That is not a good reason to break the game. I completely agree. In fact, I think it's a pretty shit reason. But I can understand where Wargaming are coming from in trying to be able to have tanks that people are going to want to buy, because that's the main aim, right? And I don't necessarily think they're trying to bring out completely overpowered tanks. I think they're trying to bring out unique tanks, but in doing so, have brought out some pretty overpowered tanks that have broken the game. But as I said, guys, this tank is just really not that great. Like, it's good, but it's just not that great, and there are some worse tanks at tier 8 anyway. But this brings me on to another point, and why I have titled the video World of Premium Tanks. And that's because you get into any game in World of Tanks at tier 8, tier 9, tier 10, you are going to be surrounded by premium tanks. Premium tanks of all different types. And I think that that's actually pretty sad. I mean, for me, myself as a player, I just don't like grinding tanks anymore. I don't find it enjoyable. I don't see much point in the end game, and I think a lot of you guys out there might as well. I've spent far too much money on this game, more than I would ever like to admit, and I pretty much solely play tier 8 premium tanks, and I know a lot of you guys out there do as well, because they're just better, and I think that's objectively speaking better than the tier 8 premium counterparts. The Defender, really fun tank to play because it's completely overpowered. The Chrysler K, pretty fun tank to play. I wouldn't say it's completely overpowered, but it's better than the vast majority of its tier 8 standard counterparts. And so I don't really see much point myself in playing those kind of standard tanks at tier 8 because they're just not that fun. Even tier 9 and tier 10, I mean, these tanks, that they can compete with those tanks. I remember back in the day, right? Back in the day, I'm 20 years old now, and it's back in the day. But back in the day in World of Tanks, premium tanks were designed to be worse than their counterpart. And somehow, over some shift of time, completely unannounced, these tanks have become, in general, better than their standard tier 8 counterparts. And I say that Wargaming have learnt their lesson and have slowed down the introduction of these tanks, and that's true. I genuinely believe that. Think about the what was it? Oh man, I can't remember, the French tank destroyer that was just released in tier 8. That's really not an overpowered tank. It's a good tank, but it's not an overpowered tank. Have a look at, say though, the WZ-120-1 GFT. I can't remember even the name, but that tier 8 Chinese premium tank destroyer, that tank there is objectively overpowered, and that was pretty hilarious there, guys. But that tank there, that tank is objectively overpowered. It has an insane DPM, it has great frontal armor, it's very mobile, it has great traverse speed. The gun might not have the greatest handling, but it has 440 alpha damage per hit, and as I said, amazing DPM with pretty good penetration. So I don't think that Wargaming are just going to stop introducing tanks that are better than their tier 8 counterparts. I just don't think that that is a viable option for them in terms of money. And I'm sure it's scary for them, being quite an old game now, in trying to stay relevant to their consumer base. Now, there's going to be some diehard fans like me, and probably yourself out there if you're watching my video now, that are going to stick by World of Tanks probably for a while, but they still need to try and compel us to play the game. And yes, they're releasing more content, but there's only so much content that they can release before people are like, well, this is boring, this is the same old, give me something new. So, you know, Wargaming aren't just going to stop releasing these kind of tanks that are going to appeal to those out there, us wallet warriors out there that want to spend money on tanks that are just good and are going to be, I don't know if necessarily fun to play, but are going to make us feel more dominant on the battlefield, I suppose. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the game. I haven't even looked at the game at all, so let's have a look at the post-game stats of the game. We'll see just how well Dr. 3 did, and you'll see, guys, that he did very, very well in this game indeed. So, guys, enough of the rant. Let's get on to how Dr. 3 did in this game. Of course, he got a Mastery Badge, Ace Tanker, a Bruiser Medal, a Hand of God Medal, an Arsonist Medal, a Fire for Effect Medal, a Shellproof Medal, and a Duelist Medal. He did, of course, get the Radley Walters Medal for destroying 8 or 9 tanks. He destroyed 8 tanks, but who cares? He still got the Radley Walters Medal. He got a Cool-Headed, a Steel Wall, a High Caliber, and a Top Gun, but who cares about the Top Gun because he got the Radley Walters. So back onto the score. Now, this is absolutely insane. I did not expect to see this when I saw this in the post-game stats, but he did 7,423 damage in this game. That is absolutely insane. He absolutely wrecked the enemy team. hands down. They pretty much bent over and took it. And he did way better than the rest of his team. That M53, M55 still had a pretty good game at 2,245 damage, but he just absolutely destroyed the game for his team, which is awesome. Now, he did, most of the damage was from pretty close up, which is something you'd want to expect in this tank because it is, of course, a pretty slow, I guess super heavy with its armor, and it weighs quite a lot. He shot 33 shells, of which 29 hit and 27 penetrated, and he made an insane profit of 233,000 credits, and he made a base credit of 145,498, and he did have a booster on as well, but that barely gave anything in the grand scheme of things. So this tank can print credits like absolute crazy. This tank carries a heap of ammunition, so you're never going to run out of ammunition either. So if you do want to make credits in this tank, it can do that. But as I said, guys, this tank really isn't as great as it may seem on paper. Now, he received 2,175 base experience, which in itself is absolutely crazy. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you so very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please do consider leaving it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new, comment down below, and I'll catch you next time.